Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, war or stalemate? That is the question. And that seems to be where we're at right now with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. Gotta admit, Putin seems to kind of have an idea of what he's doing a little bit better than the guy filling space at the White House. And I'm not saying that because I support Putin or Russia, because that's not necessarily the case at all. I'm certainly not in favor of the one in the White House, but just trying to look at this from a fair and balanced point of view. I think Putin has put the rest of the world in a position that, you know, as long as he doesn't go any further, he's kind of called their bluff. I do think, at least on the surface of what it looks like, it does appear that his intentions are to take more than what he's already taken and move his troops further in. He's already claiming that some of the areas that are not under the control of the rebels are in fact part of these regions also. And these are regions that are under the control of the Ukrainian government. And his intention seems to be that they are planning on taking at least those areas. But it does look like a full-scale war with Ukraine is building. But then again, this whole thing for the last several weeks now has just been back and forth. And I think that, to be honest, because I'm not an expert, but to be honest, even watching people that I would consider experts, it's been a tough one to call. I think most people have been kind of going back and forth on whether or not they think it's going to happen or not. Is there going to be an actual conflict happen? And it's just back and forth on that. Today, Biden announced his sanctions, you know, the ones that we've been hearing about for weeks now that were going to be so devastating. I don't think that too many people thought that they were that big of a deal. In fact, basically, the only real sanctions that were put on Russia was the Russian central banks. In fact, the state banks that, you know, the average person uses have been untouched in his sanctions. In fact, I think a good sign that the sanctions really have meant nothing too much to Russia is that yesterday, when Putin made his announcement and then moved troops into Ukraine, into the eastern parts of Ukraine, the Russian stock market basically crashed, went down 17% at one point. I think it may have ended a little higher than that, but still in the negative 12 to negative 15%. And by all standards, that's considered a crash. Well, today, after hearing the global community's, you know, outrage and all the sanctions that they're going to put on it, the stock market in Russia made all that back and then some, and ended the day in the positive. So I don't think that Russia is too scared of what they're claiming so far that they're going to do. I did see that it was interesting that Canada, who has announced sanctions also, is sanctioning their own truck drivers and their own citizens harsher than they're sanctioning Russia. And as if you didn't know, yesterday the Russian, for Freudian slip there, the Canadian Parliament voted to fully enact this Emergency Powers Act that Trudeau issued, which in a sense is enacting martial law. So they supported that, and it is now officially a go. Just giving him all the support and power that he needs to be the little dictator in North. This stuff that's going on, though, in Russia could have some pretty serious ramifications. Even today, when Biden was speaking, he made it quite clear that these and possibly other sanctions and any future actions are probably going to have some ramifications here at home, which is exactly what we've been saying on here. To get yourself ready. He said there's going to be a financial cost. And so to me, that's his way of saying, folks, you need to get ready here in the homeland because America's going to start feeling this. I mean, it's not like we're entering this with a strong economy. We're entering this with an economy that's like hanging on by a thread. And that one little thread it's hanging on is starting to get frayed a little bit. And that's the economy that we're going into this. We're going into this with inflation that just keeps rising up, with fuel prices that keep rising up, with, you know, all kinds of interest rates that are, they're the whispers of them being raised up 9 different times, as JP Morgan is claiming they're predicting 9 interest rate raises in between now and this time next year, a year from now. We're looking at, you know, the supply chain problems, the shipping delays, all that kind of stuff. And we're doing that's all going on while it looks like in some form or fashion, we're going to be involved in Europe. We've said this all along, this could be a massive, huge war. It appears that Ukraine is not backing down. The Ukrainian president said that they still want peace, but they're not willing to give up any of their land at all. It looks like the United States, France, and other countries have cut off diplomatic attempts with Russia. They've said there's no more point in it anymore. And all this is going on, and it's every day making Russia and Putin look stronger and making America look weaker, because there's been all these threats that we're going to come down hard on them. And well, so far that hasn't happened. And in the back of my mind, and I've got to think in the back of a lot of other people's minds, China is probably thinking, I think the time is now just perfect for us to move in and stake our claim in Taiwan. I think that's probably where this is going to head. I could be wrong, but I think that's probably a strong possibility. We have to just keep getting prepared, folks. This just doesn't look good. And in the end, it may not anything happen. And that's the thing. If this just continues to be a stalemate, if Russia decides to not move any further in and just kind of stay where they're at for a while, and that could happen and last for weeks, months, or even years. Are there any negatives to that? I think so. Because what it does is it once again puts a huge, and this time a really big one, I think, dent in this idea that America is at the top of the world, that America's the big boys, that the rest of the world trembles when we stand. In fact, even the Jerusalem Post ran an article talking about that very thing, that all this is doing is weakening America's position as basically the leader of the free world. And that, in the end, is not going to have a good side effects for you and I. Part of the plush lifestyle that we live, and the success and the just, you know, the lavishness that America enjoys, is because we're the big boys. You know, we're the big dogs. When we say we want this, we get it. When we want this kind of trade deal, we get it. And well, that's not the case anymore. You know, the globalists, while they've wanted to take down America and take away guns and take away all kinds of other rights, like what's happening right now in Canada, they've always known that they couldn't, because America was so strong that's just one that they just may not ever take down. Well, guess what? This is just another sign that America can be taken down. And the factions, the globalist factions, well, the side that America and Europe and Klaus Schwab and, you know, Canada and Australia is on, they're starting to show some serious signs of weakness. And, you know, China, Russia, and all of their allies are looking pretty strong right now. I think that either way this plays out in the long run, it's not going to work very good for the United States. And so I think that we certainly have to continue to prepare. It does look like, and the reports are, that by tonight, by tomorrow, Russia could be moving further in. He's called up his reservists. They've continued to move more troops, not just in the areas that they've taken over, but in other areas along the Ukrainian border. I mean, it looks that way. So is that a reason for us to become panicked? Is that a reason for us to, you know, just cower in fear that World War III is upon us? No, not at all. Even though certainly that is a strong possibility. I think what it means is that it should be, if nothing else has happened over the last year or so, this should definitely be enough to kind of wake you up and realize that, it's time. It's time to get ourselves ready. And then it's also quite interesting that all this is going on when tomorrow the United States Freedom Convoy is supposed to happen. And you can't hardly find anything about it online. And I believe it's all being done that way for a reason. I still believe that one of the reasons that this is, that Biden is doing the things that he's doing, he's got to distract the American media, the American government. They've got to distract from this convoy, not just because of what the convoy is doing or might do, but because of what they're going to do to the people protesting. It's all a possibility. And, they've got to, they look weak with Putin. They certainly don't want to look weak compared to Canada, in the globalist eyes. And Canada, boy, they took care of it. They knew how. I mean, they followed the World Economic Forum playbook right to a T. And they said, we ain't going to have none of this freedom talk anymore in our country. And they dealt with it. And now they're looking at the United States, and they're wondering if, little Biden can handle it. And so we've got to have some distractions going on. So I think that's part of what's happening. And the other part is that we are watching our Western civilization. And, I've been saying this for a while. We're watching the West collapse. And in my opinion, what is going on with Russia and China right now is a huge indicator of that. We're seeing these powers that are opposing the West rise up and try to take us down because they see the weakness. Would Putin have done this 10 years ago? Probably not. I mean, the last time he did it was under another weak presidency, and he got away with it then. Do you think he would do that under a really strong presidency? Probably not. He certainly didn't try. And so I think what they see is America and the West is growing weaker and weaker. They see that it's starting to collapse. It's starting to break its global hold and power. And they're going to step in and they're going to take advantage of that. All this means for you and I is, like I've been saying, continue to get ready. Get your house in order. Gas prices, probably going to be one of the first things that we see. The next thing is going to be food, because fertilizer. I was looking the other day that that one of the key components in producing fertilizer comes from Russia, and the world's supply of that, about 62 to 64% of that comes from Russia. That's quite significant. And we've been talking about that on here also, that food prices are probably going to skyrocket because fertilizer prices are up, so it's going to cost more to produce food, and there's a huge shortage of fertilizer, so there's not going to be as much food produced, most likely. The way modern farming works is they need lots and lots of fertilizer to make it work. That's the thing that I've been talking about for a couple of years now on this channel, the fragility of the modern farming system. And this is one of those things. If they don't have all the right little chemicals to put on the food, then it don't grow and everyone starves. That's what's a big difference between that and putting out your own gardens and being self-sufficient. And the world is going to wake up and realize how important that is when they can't afford the food to eat and it just doesn't exist. So now more than ever, get ready to plant your gardens. It's getting close to that time. Some of you are already in that time, and a lot of you are getting pretty close to that time that you can start your seeds indoors and get those ready. It's going to be soon coming to that point for a lot of you to plant your early spring gardens. And then just keep planting and keep preparing and keep growing and expanding, because it's quite possible by this summer and fall, you're going to greatly appreciate every bit of food that you've worked so hard to produce. When you go and you try to afford to buy any food. I mean, already food is just ridiculous. and I suspect it's just only going to get worse. So folks, continue to prep up and get your houses in order. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.